everybody! Welcome to the Good Evening Kitties podcast, a Tales from the Crypt review. My name is Melissa, your ghostess with the mostest, and this episode today is about Season 2, Episode 11, Judy, You're Not Yourself Today. Now, just a quick warning, I do have my cat in here. His name is Gus, and sometimes he can be chatty. So far, he's being a good boy, but we will see. So just let you know, if you hear any meows or anything, that's who that is. He's very chatty. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get into the episode here. Judy, You're Not Yourself Today. This one was all right. It's actually a little sad. Like by the end, I was like, oh, that's kind of a sad episode. So I don't know. We'll get into this one here. This one has a lot to do with gun safety and being a gun fanatic. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But okay, so I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit here about Season 2, Episode 11, Judy, You're Not Yourself Today. As always, John Kassir does the voice of the Crypt Keeper, and Danny Elfman does the theme song. This episode was directed by Randa Haynes, who also directed Children of a Lesser God. The screenplay is by Scott Nemefro. This stars Carol Kane, who you know her from, she played the grandma in Addams Family Values, and she was in The Princess Bride. She's also in Scrooge. She's in a lot of stuff. She has a real fun voice, I think. I mean, it can be a little high, but she always plays her characters really well. I like her. Brian Kerwin is also in this. He's in from TV's One Life to Live. And Frances Bay also has a good role in this. She's been in Critters 3 and other things, and she's also the grandmother in Happy Gilmore. So she was in this movie, it was a pretty fun role for her. So the original air date was June 12th, 1990. The description is, nice bod, she'll take it. A quirky Mr. and Mrs. are quirkier after a saleswoman takes over the wife's body. So this episode opens up with the Crypt Keeper. It's pretty funny. Because this episode's a little bit about beauty and like youth and things like that. So it starts out with the Crypt Keeper, and he's in like a little like robe, and he's putting his face in like some mud, and he's got his mud mask on and his hair up in a towel, and he's kind of got a little beauty spa treatment going on that he's saying that he's waiting for his blood pack to harden on his face instead of, I guess, his mud pack. So he starts up this episode, and it starts out this couple who live in a very ornate house, which I think it might be, I want to say it's like the 70s or 80s that this is set in, but maybe not. It was a little hard to tell. They had an older car, but a lot of people didn't. I have a feeling it's probably just now. But they did mention Vietnam, so I didn't know like where they were exactly pointing it at. But so it starts out showing a bunch of ornate pictures and things, and this house is a lot. It's like one of those really high, like, wallpaper. Everything is decor, it's very decor, a lot of things. And there's a couple named Donald and Judy, and they're kind of quirky, and they always keep calling each other darling, and oh, darling, I love you this, darling, this.
Oh, Donald, sometimes I swear you're such an odd duck.
Perhaps I am. Only tell me that you still love me, darling.
Darling.
I'm not sure quite what she does. I mean, she's a little into her beauty. Like, you can tell, like, she's, like, talking about, like, he shouldn't smoke because it gives her wrinkles, or, or it makes her hair dull, or, there's things like this. Like, she's very against, like, smoking, and then she's got, like, a thing of lotion and stuff that she puts on for, like, her wrinkles and age spots, and then she wipes on her hands and everything about being youthful. And then her husband, Donald, is a little more, like, he's a huge gun nut, but, like, a really... Gosh, like a really bad side of the gun nut. Like he's sloppy about it. We'll see later on, but there's like pictures and things of like targets, like people targets that you shoot at a gun range around the house. He's got guns everywhere. There's like a gun. You don't really see a whole lot of them now, but there's like a gun. Like he's sitting there at the table with a shotgun that's open. Like he's just been walking around with a shotgun, like pretending to shoot things. And he's getting ready to have breakfast with her, and it's like an early Saturday morning, and they're getting ready to sit down and have breakfast. And so, yeah, he's really just into all the gun stuff. They're dressed nice for the morning, like he's got a suit on and stuff, and she's got a nice outfit on. And they get this knock at the door, and they're both like, who would be here at this, I think they call ungodly hour, and it's probably only like 7 a.m. or something. Which for, I guess, like a Saturday, yeah, but there you have a lot of like fancy china and stuff out, like it's really ornate. And I'd say there are a couple probably in their like mid to late 30s. So yes, so Donald goes to answer the door with the gun. Like he brings the gun with him, and This part's pretty funny because he answers the door with the gun, and there's a man there, and he's there to like take signatures or like a petition for gun elimination.
What? Good morning, sir. I'm from the Gun Elimination Legislation Activists for Total International Neutrality.
You want to run that mouthful by me one more time, pal?
And which is funny because he, Donald has a gun, like, and he just points the gun right at him. And the organization is the Gun Elimination Legislation Activists for Total International Neutrality. And so Donald's like, gelatin? You mean it's called gelatin? Like, that's all the acronym for it. And he's just like, he's really, he's upset. He's like, are you really, like, and the guy's even like, why did I even knock? Like, he's just like, this is not gonna work. So Judy shows up behind Donald and is like, I'm sorry for my husband. He gets carried away. And then the guy doing the talking with the petition or whatever is like, this is exactly why I come to visit people, just so people know about this kind of situation and people run around crazy with guns or whatever. And so Donald, like, he's like, this gun is fine. There's nothing wrong with this gun. And he, like, points the gun right in front of this guy to his wife's head and pulls the trigger to show that it's not loaded. And yeah, we kind of knew it wasn't loaded because he had it open over at the table. But this guy didn't know. And it's like, that is a horrible thing. Like, think that you're never supposed to do that as a gun enthusiast. You're never supposed to, like, pull the trigger. You always gotta make sure your safety's on. You don't just run around swinging your gun everywhere. That's not how it works. So this guy is completely off it with everything. And when he does that, it scares Judy. She's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just did that. You're stressing me out. Stress makes me get wrinkles. She's worried about all that. And he's like, oh, honey, you're fine. And then he's like, I'm going to go to my gun meeting. So he's already, like, walking around because he's excited about his gun meeting. So he leaves for the day to go to this gun meeting. Again, like I said, I think he has, like, a gun at the nightstand. He has, like, a gun in the cabinet. He has, like, things of, like, you open a drawer and there's some bullets in it. Like, he's all about guns. So he's heading to the gun club and he's getting all worked up about, like, the guy that just came to see her and how much he loves shooting guns. And then Judy's like, ooh, I like that, like that. She's like, you're so cute when you're angry and all this stuff. And so he's like, whatever. And yeah, I just can't get over how ornate and decorated this. It's too much. It's like a tea room all the time. It's too much. So he leaves to go to his gun thing, to his gun meeting. So later that day, while Judy's hanging out at the house by herself, she gets a knock on the door, or a doorbell, something like that. And Frances Bay is playing this older lady. Well, she usually is an older lady in most things. I don't know if she really acted too much that we remember her for when she was younger. So she kind of looks like an Avon lady. She's out there. She's got a lot of, like, crazy jewelry on, and she's smoking a cigarette and a hat. And I like her because she's a little more sassy, like, in a mean way, which is kind of fun. And because usually she plays really sweet people. And so this one's kind of fun. And she works for Avatar Cosmetics.
Hi, I'm from Avatar Cosmetics. We spoke.
We did?
On the phone. This is, 300 chats worth.
Well, yes, it is. But I'm afraid I have never heard of Avatar Cosmetics, my good woman.
She's basically, like, weaseling her way in, because she's like, oh, I already spoke to you. And Judy's like, I never heard of you before. And she's like, oh, well, I guess, yeah, I don't know. I try to keep, like, a high profile with my clients. And she's like, oh, like, she wants to be into that, And so the older lady is like, did you always have that problem with your pores? And she's like, my pores? So then she's, like, getting self-conscious. So she's like, okay, well, so she comes out there to look at her and she's talking to her. And the older lady is like, well, I do normally keep it a high clientele, so I don't know, maybe I shouldn't show you if you don't know me. And she's like, no, I could pay you cash and you wouldn't have to tell anybody. And she's like, maybe I could buy something, for my pores or something. And she's like, all right. And then she is like, this part's a little suspicious because then she's like, oh, what time will your husband be home? And then she immediately catches herself, like, in the lie, like, where she's like, I figured since you're so beautiful that you would have a husband, And Carol Kane is really, like, she's really working her high-pitched voice and all this and stuff and just real flighty, and it's fun. So she's like, oh, yes, my husband won't be home for hours and hours, so we have plenty of time to chat. Come on in. And so she invites her in, and they're talking, and she sits down, and Judy notices a bunch of her jewelry that she's wearing. And she's like, oh, your jewelry, I like it. It's really pretty. Where'd you, is it high class? And the lady's like, oh, no, it's junk. Nothing an old lady like me would care about. And she's like, well, what about, she sees this really pretty, well, I mean, I guess it's pretty, I don't know, it's kind of just like a jade looking thing it's really ornate and decorative with these little hangy strings off of it. It's a big pendant kind of thing. And she sees it and she's like, oh, that's very beautiful. And, and the older lady is like, yes, well, you have good taste. And she's like, oh, thank you. And so she's like, well, why don't you try it on? And she's like, okay, I will. So she takes the necklace and she's like, hey, and she puts it on. And she's wearing it and looking into the mirror. And immediately you notice that the older lady has the same necklace that I guess she had hidden kind of down in her shirt. And she's looking really excited. Oh, no, it's not in her shirt. She just had it hidden. And so her necklace starts to glow. And then this part's funny because the older lady is like,
As I said before, you really are quite beautiful.
Thank you.
Got a great ass, honey. I'll like it even better when it's
so that's when you realize what's going to happen, and she starts glowing green. Everything starts glowing green around her, and you realize that she is like a witch, or like, at first you think, like, at first I thought she was just like trapped and she had to try to get someone to switch with her, but it looks like it's more like she's a witch where she's aging and she needs to switch, so she has this necklace thing. So at first I was like, well, maybe she's like cursed, which in a way I guess she is. So basically what she was doing is she's going to switch bodies with Judy. She wants Judy's younger body. And that's what happens. So Judy's essence or whatever goes inside the older lady, and the older lady essence or soul or whatever goes inside Judy. So they end up switching. So it's these matching necklaces that by both of them wearing it, they swap. A little while later, Donald comes back from his meeting in his old car, and like a VW thing or something, and he's like got the gun in a gun case and he's like dancing with it up to the door like it's the best thing ever. And it's just like a regular shotgun, but he's like, I don't know. So he starts to head to the door and he notices that the door is open a little bit. And so he's kind of like, okay. And so he comes in and he's asking for his wife, Judy. And this old lady, kind of grabs onto him and is like, Donald, help me. And he's like, whoa, well, he doesn't know who this is. He's like, what? Who are you? Where's my wife? What's happening? And she's like, it's me, it's Judy. And he starts asking her all these questions about their wedding day. And because I think they were married I want to say 14 years or something. I might be mistaken. But he's asking her all these questions, and she gets them all right. And he's like, "How would you know that?" And, and she's like, "What are you doing? You gotta be quiet. No, you be quiet. Be a good boy. You say hi to everybody." Okay. And so, he's like, "How would you know that?" And she's like, "No, seriously, I'm your wife." And he's like, what? Not even sure what's happening. And why, boo? You gotta be quiet. Go lay down. You wanna go out? What? No. Gus. Okay. Well, sit down and be good. Sit down. Sit down. I know. He wants to snuggle. Okay, Romus. I know. We're working on it. Okay. Shh. Sit down. Well, Gus is comfy, so we'll go ahead. So, okay, so, he figures that out, and she's like, no, Judy took off, in my body, or whatever, the witch or whatever took off in my body. And he's like, what? And so he ends up getting this phone call from a friend of his, and he's saying that,
you and Judy have a fight today.
No, why?
Because she just threw back 3 gin and tonics, and when I sat down next to her, she told me to go to hell like she knew the way.
like she didn't know him and stuff, and he's like, and twice they're like, Judy, she's not herself today, So Donald's like, what? And she's like, yeah, she's down here at the bar here and heading to the train station or whatever. So she's going to take off. This witch is taking her body and getting out of there, which, I'm like, hey, good for her, I guess. So Donald decides to go to the train station to stop her. And he has Judy, who's in the old lady's body, which at first, you're not really sure if he's into it or not, or he believes her. But he kind of does really quick in a way. And so he's like, hey, let's get our coats and get out of here. And so, as an older lady, she's grabbing her coat, oh, is this going to match? And, and so he locks her in the closet. And he's like, I gotta go. And she's like, what? No. And she's yelling. And then even his keychain is a gun on the end of his keychain. I was like, guy's really into it. And so he heads over to the train station. And he sees her. She's smoking a cigarette and looking in the mirror at herself, which is a problem because she didn't like smoking to begin with. And she's got her hair all down and she's looking a little more sassy, and not as put together as Judy was. Like, she's really enjoying her new body. And he kind of catches on really quick. Like I said, he notices this thing on TV about, or on a newspaper about a woman who thought her cancerous tumor, or she had cancerous tumors, but they were actually her twins. And so he kind of gets this idea to test her, which I thought was kind of clever. There's a tabloid called the National Tattler that he is seen, and so he runs up to Judy and with the old lady inside of her, and is kind of like,
Judy, you've got to face up to it. The cancer is spreading.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
You know there's no hope for remission. That it's just a matter of time. Don't spend your last few weeks without me.
and so it really freaks her out. She's like, oh my gosh, you mean this body had cancer? Like, you know, in her head, she's like, what? And she gets super mad in the train station, and she starts growing like bright green. And I thought it was really kind of clever of him to be like, oh no, you have cancer. You know, like he's really wanting to save his wife, you know? And so she gets super mad and kind of steps back and starts glowing green, and it kind of, you know, you can't look at it when she gets certain bright. Like, you have to cover your eyes, and she puts her sunglasses on, and she switches the bodies back. So then he's still at the train station, and people don't seem too concerned, really, because she's on the ground now. But now she's herself. She's actually herself. And Donald picks her up and is like, oh my gosh, and, you know, Judy, is it you? And she's like, yeah. And so they run back to the house because now the old lady's back in her body in the closet, you know? So they got to go figure all that out. So they race back to the house, and they're like, you know, we got a witch going on here, you know? And so he gets his pistol out, and they're in the house, and she's yelling, the witch is yelling through the door to let her out and all this stuff, and cussing and things like that. And he gets freaked out, and he starts just shooting everywhere, and he is a horrible shot. For a guy who belongs to a gun club, he did not handle it very well, and he shoots wildly and hits a bunch of stuff. And at first I wasn't sure if he hit her, but I guess he does, because shortly after this, I guess he hits through the doorknob or something. The door opens and she falls out dead. So the witch has been shot and she's dead. But yeah, he just like is shooting all over the place. Yeah, okay, so he did. Yeah, he hit through the door twice. So it just happened to hit her like through a mirror and everything. So I don't know. So he like empties the whole clip on her, and then he's super excited about it. He's like, oh my gosh.
That was great! What a rush! Blam, blam, blam! Ah, I blew her away. I fucking blew her away. Blam, 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 blam! Bam, 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 bam! She's dead.
That was exhilarating. I feel amazing. I'm like, oh no, he feels amazing. And Judy comes over and she's like, oh my gosh. And then she's kind of like turned on by how excited he is. And then I guess they decide to go do their thing like right next to her body, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of just a whirl of colors and scarves and things. But it is a little creepy how excited he gets. Like he was just like, yeah, I feel so awesome. I did that. So I thought they were going to just be like, this woman broke into our house and I protected us and now she's dead. But they went about this a different way, which I kind of set them up for the failure a little bit. He dug a big old hole and he pushed the lady in there upside down, like, and buried her. And they left her necklace. I guess they didn't realize they don't realize it's the necklaces, I guess, which was like my first thought, but I don't think they know it's the necklace. Even though the necklace, I don't know. Sometimes they just do. So they leave the necklace on the old lady, and then what's her face? Or Judy wants to keep the necklace on, and he's like, no, it belongs to her. I tried burning it, I tried getting rid of it. So they did try to get rid of hers, but I don't know. And they just had the one. So the other one's still on the witch. And so they're just like, you know, we tried burning it, we tried everything, and it won't get hurt, or it won't go. So they want to put it in their safe. And like, personally, I don't know. He's like, we should probably just get rid of it, like throw it somewhere where we can't look at it, because it seems like Judy's very enthralled by it, and she wants to put it back on, or at least look at it, you know, and touch it. And she's like, maybe we should just leave it on the vanity. And he's like, no. So it cuts to 3 months later, and they're having nightmares. They don't really show you what they are, but they both keep having nightmares almost every night after what's happened, and they know why. He's like, there's a witch buried in our basement, you know. Judy had already awakened from her nightmare. So she awakens from her nightmare first. And she is drawn to the necklace. So she puts the necklace on. And she's kind of walking around the room. And he wakes up shortly after. And she was just like, oh, I was up, I was cold and stuff. And then that's when he's like, hey, we should maybe move the body, so we stop having dreams.
I just thought that maybe it'd help those nightmares if we buried her someplace else.
They'll go away. Just takes time. Really. Mine aren't so bad anymore.
You could have fooled me.
And she's like, I don't know, my dreams aren't really all that bad anymore and stuff, and it'll get better. So you can know right away that something's up because she put the necklace on. So basically what had happened is she was compelled to put the necklace on. She put it on. So what happened is she switched again. So I guess like every time it's re-put on and stuff, like it just automatically, even though the woman's dead. Yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense because I guess the woman might be dead, but maybe she's not really dead. The witch, because she's a witch. So she's not really dead, and then they switch again. So then he goes downstairs to get a glass of milk, and he's got like these stripy like Tony the Tiger pajamas on, and he goes down to get a glass of milk, and he runs into the witch, his body, and she's all decayed, and she's still got all the necklace on. She's like, help me, and she's all gross, and he's freaking out, and he's looking for guns everywhere. He's like throwing things down and pulling guns out, just trying to find some way to do it. And see what had happened is, so Judy and her switch bodies. So she's back in this old lady's body who's all decayed, and Judy is in her body now again. Or I mean, the witch is in her body now again. And so that's what I'm kind of confused about, because it's like if the witch was dead, wouldn't the witch's essence go into Judy, and then Judy would just have a dead body? Like, I don't know. So he's fighting her off, and he's about ready to shoot the witch, because I think he doesn't realize she put the necklace on. He thinks that it just came back, so he's just gonna kill it. And then the witch, Judy in the witch's body, stops him and is like, please don't, it's me, it's your wife. And then that's when you see that Judy's body is coming down the stairs, and she's in her ready to go outfit. Like, she's got a nice outfit on with a hat and a suitcase. So she's like, bye, like, I'm just gonna go, like. And he's like, Judy, what are you doing, and she's, right away they're both like, kill it, like, I'm your wife, no, I'm your wife.
No, Donald, I'm your wife. I'm Judy. No, Donald, I am your wife. I'm Judy. No, Donald, I am your wife. I'm Judy.
And so he's not sure what to do, and he's got this gun, and so he tells Judy's body, take the keys, go get the Jag, and we'll get out of here. And she's like, all right, cool. And so she grabs the keys, and then right before she hits the door, he's like, hey, Judy. And she's like, what? And then he's like, we don't have a Jag yet. And she's like, oh my God. And so he points the gun at her and kind of pulls her forward away from the door, and they start wrestling. And again, he's still in the Tony the Tiger striped outfit. And they're wrestling, and like, of course they didn't throw the gun down. So they're wrestling around with this gun, and the gun goes off. And at first, it's that scene where you don't know exactly who got shot. And then it turns out he shot Judy. The gun went off in Judy's stomach, and Judy's back over in the witch body, like, oh my gosh. And so he's like, give my wife back and stuff. So then the witch is like super bitchy about it, and she goes, your wish is my command. And she pulls out the necklace from under her coat, and she has them switch again. So she kind of screws them over. So what she does is she's like, ha 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 ha. And so she switches back into her old body. The witch is in the old decaying body, and she disappears. So then it's left with Judy, and Judy's dying now. She's back in her regular body, and she's dying. And it's really kind of sad because, he's really upset because he shot her, and now his wife's there. She's dying, and he's kind of holding her, and she goes like,
What does the NRA handbook suggest you do now?
It's kind of sad because he's like, he also does these voices where he acts like he's James Bond, and so he kind of acts like James Bond a little at the end. But it's sad because it's like, he's going to be wanted for murder because this witch is gone. She disappeared and everything too. So it's like, it's kind of like if you would have just acted like she came to your house, I don't know. But it's kind of sad. So they kind of hold each other, and he screams no, and she dies in his arms. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of disappointing. It's kind of a sad one. It's an interesting twist, but that's basically the episode. So I was like, huh, okay. So Judy dies, and then it goes back to the Crypt Keeper at the end of the episode here. And the Crypt Keeper's got his own little pendant on, and he's got a gun. And then he puts the gun to his head a little, and he's talking, and he's being kind of weird about it. throwing out all his puns. Crypt Keeper, you're so punny. The best Crypt Keeper pun is,
my cosmetologist said I was starting to look a little lifeless.
yes, lifeless because he is a corpse. There's a couple other good puns in there too. This one wasn't too bad, but the gun pointing at the face was kind of weird. So that's the end of the episode. Like I said, it was a little sad one. It had a good build-up, and I enjoyed the people in it, and they did a good job. But it was just kind of a little sad at the end, but it was still kind of fun. There's no IMDb trivia for this episode. So that's basically it. The next episode is Season 2, Episode 12, Fitting Punishment. Again, this is the Good Evening Kitties podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to reach me with anything about Tales from the Crypt, or anything you want me to read about that, or any questions or comments, you can reach me at goodeveningpod@gmail.com. You can also check out the podcast on Podbay, Podbean, Stitcher, iTunes, and I'm also on Google Play. You know, I'm really appreciating all these comments I'm getting on iTunes. I would love to have more. The more 5-star comments I get really helps me see, you know, how many people are interested and helps me get pushed up more on the iTunes charts, which is awesome. So again, thank you so much for listening. And this is the Good Evening Kitties podcast.